People are starting to join. Welcome. Jess, Carlos, Carolina, so amazing to see you on here. Oh, hello. Good to see you. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. We're in business. In business.
Good morning, Natalie.
Good morning, Shakti. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm gonna get people just until maybe 2 minutes after the hour. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, how are you?
Great, thank you. How are you?
Good, good.
Dear Cedra, Jen,
Hi, good to see you.
Giancarlo. Oh my goodness, Diana. This is like a party with all my favorite people that I don't get to see all the time.
Hello, hello.
So happy. Jen, it's been too long. We need to catch up. You need to come back to Miami.
Yeah, maybe. I am due for a visit. It has been a while. It has been a while.
Well, amazing to see you on here. Okay. I know it's Friday afternoon. It's early morning for Jan and others, but I want to respect everyone's time, so I will get us going here and assume people will trickle in and they will just have to catch up. So what I would love is, as you connect, I know most of you on here, but if you can just put in the chat where you are connecting from and one thing you're excited to learn or curious to learn about today. Make this moderately interactive so that you get engaged. Virginia, Carolina. I've been there a couple times. Shakti in Miami. Expanding your perspective on wisdom towards high performance. Well, you will get that without a doubt. Without a doubt. Okay. Let's get us going. I will pause this music, my experimental music that seemed to work, and we will jump in. So today we're talking about the energy of excellence, and I'm going to let you in on some ancient spiritual wisdom for high performance, whatever high performance means to you. And I want to start with a question. What is energy? It's a word that we use often in so many different contexts, and yet as a concept, it can be incredibly elusive. You know when you feel it, but can you really describe it? So to tee up our deeper understanding of energy, I'll start by sharing a study that I read by psychiatrist, author, and Harvard professor, Dr. Ellen Langer, in her book, Mindful Body. Now, if you've ever heard of any fascinating study about the mind-body connection, it's very likely that it came out of her lab. And this study had a group of people meditating in a room. When the meditators left, study participants entered and they were administered cognitive tests. A second group of participants went into a different room to take the same cognitive test where no meditators had been before. And when they looked at the results, the people that had taken the tests in the room where the individuals had finished meditating and left performed significantly better than those who were in the empty room. And while Dr. Langer herself classifies this study as a bit woo-woo, nonetheless, she is a highly accomplished researcher, and she speaks quite openly about how these study results, as well as others that she notes in her book and many podcasts, indicate a kind of residual or contagious mindfulness from the meditator's energy force that influenced the test takers in that room. And I share this not to convince you of the power of meditation, although most of us know that it is incredibly supportive of mindfulness, stress relief, and even physical healing. But I share it to get you thinking about this invisible force of energy that drives our lives and our ability as individuals to harness its power. To make this personal, I'll share a story from my own life. In 2019, I participated in one of Tony Robbins' signature events called Unleash the Power Within. It's well known at this point, so there's no spoilers here, that late at night on the second day of the event, every single participant is invited to the fire walk. And Indigenous tribes have been doing this for a long time, many eons in different ceremonial contexts. So we know it's possible, but that doesn't mean that a few thousand people could just walk outside barefoot across burning coals without any preparation. And in fact, we spent hours in advance learning how to master our energetic state in order to complete this endeavor without getting burned. I'll never forget how nervous I felt and a lot of doubt about whether or not I would do this. But FOMO kicked in and I couldn't miss it. And this training that I mentioned included a combination of mindset, of language, of breath, movement, in addition to the collective energy of the group, all cheering each other on. It created the conditions for success. And so the lesson I took from this experience is that in order to consciously create any compelling future, whether that's arriving unscathed on the other side of a burning path of coals, or achieving any goal that you have in life or in business, you have to master your state of being. Or in other words, master your energy. Independent of whether or not you believe that the outcome of the study I mentioned is efficacious, or whether you choose to walk on burning coals barefoot if given the opportunity, what is undeniable is that everything is energy. As a result, our perception of matter-based reality is actually an illusion. And we have evidence from science. If you could look closely enough at the composition of an atom, you would see these infinitely small energy vortices called photons. But if you focus even closer, you would see nothing, just a void. So keep zooming in close enough to an atom and you realize that it has no physical structure or tangible matter. And we are just a composition of atoms, albeit 7 billion, billion. Yes, I looked that up. That's a 7 followed by 27 zeros. But all that to say, they don't have physical structure, then at the anatomical level, we actually don't either. So think about that. Technically, if our essence is pure energy, which is comprised of waves, and energy fields carry information just like a radio or a Bluetooth signal, then perhaps it's worth examining our state of our energy and how it's impacting our well-being and our interactions. And what if I told you that using the framework I'll share today, it's possible to optimize that energy to improve performance in all areas of your life? Before I go any further, I'd like to give you a sense of the flow of our time together today. Over the next hour, you'll be learning about the ancient wisdom of the chakra system and how it connects to your health and well-being, both personally as well as professionally, as a leader of yourself and, where applicable, as a leader of teams. I'll take you on a deep dive into each of the main chakras, where you'll learn about their essence, and I'll share some practical applications for your life in terms of values, health, and business. I'll also offer some coaching questions for you to take away from each. Finally, I'll share more about my offer to support you in a one-on-one coaching container. I'm going to flow through the information so we can open it up for questions at the end. So please put them in the chat or jot them down so I can address them later. I know many of you here already do know me, but for those of you who don't, I'm Natalie, and I'm a leadership coach. And I'd really like to start by sharing a bit more about what connects me to this work. For as long as I can remember in my adult life, which I spent climbing the corporate ladder in HR positions, different companies, industries, and even countries, I always felt some combination of anxious, energetically depleted, and often simply numb, just kind of going through the routine, the motions of life, trying to get to the weekend. And I couldn't even fully enjoy the weekend because by Sunday, mid-morning, afternoon, that anxious dread would return. Yet gradually over the last 10 years, but particularly in the last 4 to 5, I began immersing myself in the exploration of energy and consciousness. Through my studies and practices, such as different forms of meditation, breathwork, hypnosis, and work with different psychedelics and plant medicines, I experienced glimpses of other states of being and the resulting changes that occurred in my body and my overall state. But with the exception of sharing with a few close friends and family, I really kept this part of me hidden and separate from my work persona, my professional persona, until recently. I left my corporate job, which I realized afterwards was really the foundation of my identity. And I left to create my own coaching practice and offer that now allows me to blend my expertise in all of these areas, in strategic, business partner, talent development, as well as the psycho-spiritual domain of our existence. And this is not a pitch for you all to dive into any of these spaces that you're not called to, but what I am offering today is teachings from some of these ancient spiritual practices, namely yoga, and translating them into tools to support your greater well-being and performance so that you can access your most expansive and productive state. As I have here on the slide, my mission as a coach is to empower leaders and their teams with holistic tools that address not just the strategic, but also the energetic facets of high performance. And when I say leaders, I believe that everyone is a leader in their own life. To me, leadership is a state or an energy versus a title that's bestowed upon you by a corporation or default setting of managing a team. Sometimes we think that our energy depends on our environment or circumstances. Like, if only I didn't have to get up early in the morning and commute to work, I could get 1 more hour of sleep. Or if only I didn't have a boss micromanaging me, I could focus on my real work and I wouldn't be depleted by all these extra meetings. And sure, those things may affect your energy or your mood, but today I want to share a system to support you in sourcing energy from inside of you. And by looking at it as one interconnected channel where you can turn certain dials and tune into higher frequencies as needed. And that system is the chakra system. The system is a philosophical model, and it comes from ancient Eastern spiritual wisdom. And the chakras came to the West through tradition and practice of yoga. A chakra is a center of organization. It basically is a portal of sorts that receives, assimilates, and expresses life force energy. And you may have also heard of this referred to as chi, ki, or prana, depending on the tradition. But the word chakra itself literally translates to wheel. And at the risk of aging myself, to give you a visual, you can think of chakras as like floppy disks that contain vital programs through your body. In order to understand a human being, or any system for that matter, like an organization, we have to examine the flow of energy through the system. And the chakras provide a really amazing framework just to do that. So there are 7 principal chakras running from the base of the spine to the crown of the head, like you see in this image, and each represents a major area of human health. They also relate to archetypal elements and universal principles or needs. And in a few minutes, we'll talk more about each of these in more detail. Now, you could be thinking, this is all a little too esoteric for you, but I promise I'm going to make it tangible. Again, if everything is energy, then master your energy so that you can optimize your overall well-being, which translates into higher performance. Now, for those of you joining me from the corporate sphere, or perhaps you're an entrepreneur, you may be thinking, how does this chakra business actually connect to real business results? Well, have you ever thought how closely business strategies connect to life strategies? The Harvard Business Review recently addressed this very idea in an article where they talked about how business and life strategy relate, how these questions that organizations use to set a course for the future can be adapted to help individuals do the same. Like you can see on this chart, for example, just as good businesses, we'll say the majority of businesses, we hope, set a course through purpose, vision, and success metrics like KPIs, so can humans for their everyday lives. And so that got me thinking about the application of the chakra system, how it relates not only to our life force energy, but to our personal values, as well as those of organizations and teams. Not only is your body a system of energy, but so is your team, so is your company. Now, we're going to talk at a high level about each of these chakras, and in the process, we will consider them practically. And this will give you tangible tools to improve your own personal well-being, as I've said, as well as a direct application to improve leadership or business practices. But before we do, a short overview. Each chakra has an energetic expression, and they're believed to regulate various aspects of our being, from our sense of security and creativity to our ability to communicate and also connect with the divine. Those energies can be evaluated for their health in both a literal sense, but also in, again, a more spiritual sense, or a less direct sense in core areas of life like values and their impact on an overall system. Again, whether that's a human like you and me or as a team. Using this chakra framework, you'll have the ability to more easily diagnose and remove any blockages or obstacles that are preventing that free flow of energy through each center, so that your entire system is functioning at its best. You can think of this like a stream of water. We want to remove those rocks and leaves and branches that inevitably accumulate over time so that the water can again flow freely in its natural state. And it's also worth noting that each chakra is associated with the color of the rainbow. The chakra colors reflect these different frequencies of light and energy associated with each center. So in its totality, this system is comprised of a vibrant spectrum of energy and thus so are you. Now I'll break each of these down into some different philosophical and literal expressions, and then we'll look at their business or leadership application. And some real world questions you can ask you to yourself, as well as prompts for your team so that you can support, again, that free flow of energy. I want to make this as simple and practical as possible. So at the end of this masterclass, you walk away with a greater connection to yourself, to your teams, and with new tools to enhance your performance. So let's get into them. After a very long prelude, our first center is the root chakra, and it sits at the base of your spine, right around your tailbone. And this red chakra promotes a feeling of heat and connectedness to the earth. This color and chakra is very primal in its core needs, and it holds the vibrations of survival and basic drives like hunger and safety. So the main theme or area of focus for this center is grounding, or establishing a solid foundation, just like the roots of a tree do for the overall plants. For you personally, what contributes to your own sense of safety or survival? I'm just offering a thought here, but consider your health, because there's not much more foundational than that, right? So as individuals, this energy center can help us consider that big values question around how we are taking care of our health in terms of mind, body, soul as a vessel for our vitality. Ask, where do you experience obstacles or patterns that keep that area of your life in suboptimal condition? Maybe there's certain dietary or movement adjustments that could support more open energy flow here. Usually we know what those are, but there's a belief or an old story or pattern that keeps us stuck. And so I'll share an example from my life. I've always been big into exercise and fitness. I grew up dancing ballet, so moving my body has always been a priority. But only recently did I realize my patterning around exercise and pain. Maybe because of how I was programmed in the ballet or dance culture from such a young age. But sadly, I thought that if a workout wasn't so brutal, and I mean, like, I literally felt like I was going to die, then it didn't really register or count for me. So as a result, I was in constant pain throughout my body, and not the good kind of pain, like my muscles are stretching or growing. It was actual damage. So my work has been around reorienting to exercise as a form of nourishment and self-love, so that I have the highest functioning and best feeling vessel as my supportive foundation to operate through the rest of my life. Now, for a team and organization, by addressing the root chakra, we create a strong foundation that promotes stability, adaptability, and a culture of trust. Similar to the pain I experienced in my body when I didn't establish a solid, nurturing foundation, it stands to reason that people interacting together to achieve a common goal need the same. This foundation is important because it creates greater resilience through difficult times and openness to change and innovation. And all of that improves overall motivation and performance as operators in a business. To make this more tangible and related to concepts that are being addressed in our collective work culture today, the root chakra can be associated with establishing psychological safety, which is born out of leaders who speak and act with consistency and who make inclusive decisions aligned to a bigger collective purpose. This chakra also opens us to thinking about risk orientation, or how as leaders, we can make risk-taking safe for our teams. All of that requires a strong foundation of safety. Now, I've included a few coaching questions for you to think about under each of these chakras. And in my coaching sessions, as I work with my clients, together we use these and many other powerful questions to reveal obstacles, inhibiting overall energy so that we can overcome them. In this chakra, those might look or feel like disconnection, lack of stability, fear of change, or limited trust among team members. We identify those things so that we can minimize them. And I love something that my coach says to me: we can't intervene in a world that we can't see. So ask with curiosity, not judgment. Where do you crave validation or safety outside of yourself? What changes do you fear? And where are you comfortable or not taking calculated risks? So I'm going to continue moving through these, but I should mention that you'll all get a copy of this recording, so you can come back to these coaching questions if you don't have a pen and paper and want to furiously scribble them down. So the sacral chakra sits in your pelvis, around your sexual organs, and it relates to your core needs around creativity, passion, connection, which are all of the reasons that we're sexual beings in the first place. Once we have those stable roots to stand on, then we get to have a sense of discovery and pleasure. The main focus or expression of this chakra is gratification and innovation. And I know we don't necessarily use those words together or those two concepts in the same sentence, but is there anything more gratifying as a human than creating something new? Than generating ideas that solve a fundamental problem? And at a personal level, this chakra energy might connect to the values you have around family. To me, that's the ultimate creative act, right? Being in a relationship, creating a home, and for some, even procreating. At the level of leadership, we can use this chakra energy to spark greater collaboration and engagement as we look at questions like these below. And remember, these are just thought starters for you, and you can use them as ways to connect deeper with your teams. What about your work brings you pleasure? How is your creativity fostered or supported and expressed through your work? How could it be supported more fully? And where might you be feeling isolated and lacking connection in order to open more creative channels? Some indicators of disorder or challenges for leaders and teams related to this chakra can look like excess rigidity, an imbalanced workload, disengagement, and lack of desire to perform. I don't know about you, but I recognize all of those feelings in myself, and certainly in my career through HR. I've seen all of that, and more often than we'd like. So when you notice those, you can recognize them as an imbalanced sacral and take more deliberate, pointed action to correct them. And I'll just say the benefit of coaching is that we move from not just the identification of what stands in our way to how we can actually make the shift. As we move up the spine, we get into the solar plexus chakra, which sits right between the navel and the rib cage. Once we have that stable foundation or root, it leads us to that creative exploration in the sacral, as we just spoke about. And our solar plexus chakra now has the guts, literally, to take it into action. Also, this bright yellow color, like the sun, is very appropriate in sparking movement. At the level of core human needs, this energy most relates to our need for significance, or contribution, since its expression is around power and self-definition, autonomy. This is the energy surrounding the formation of our ego identities, which happens between about the ages of 18 months and 4 years. In relation to your personal values, consider those around money. This is a complicated subject for almost everyone, and yet it's integral to our sense of power and autonomy. To get vulnerable here for a minute, my solar plexus took a big hit when I left my corporate identity last year, which also meant leaving a title, brand association, and the steady paycheck that came with it. All of these external things that I thought gave me power. Now, my journey as a solopreneur is allowing me to learn how to source that power from within and reorient to money as an energetic currency exchange for value that I offer in who I'm actually being versus what I'm doing. Moving to the level of leadership in business, this chakra helps us examine our confidence, our risk-taking, and power dynamics like competition and politics, which I'm pretty sure we all have experienced in a business setting. Some indicators of disorder in the solar plexus can include low self-esteem, poor self-discipline, excess aggression, or a domineering attitude, like that kind of ambition that someone can exhibit without any regard for others. So I offer questions like, when and where do you feel most confident, powerful? What decisions have you been empowered with, or where might you need more autonomy? And is the competition in your environment or that you personally demonstrate truly serving you? Now to my favorite center, the heart. This is the center of love, harmony, and connection. This part of the chakra system is where your divine self and your human self meet right at the center. We start to examine our energy now as we move up into more subtle, less physical ways as we move up the chakras. These qualities of love and harmony can be expressed in many different ways, depending on the relationship, but may include intimacy, compassion, and empathy. On a personal level, perhaps this is the energy that connects you to your values around social contribution, or what you do to give back. What fills your heart with love and gratitude? How are you helping serve or support others? Or where might you like to consciously do more of that? In a leadership context, again, we can examine themes around trust and boundaries, but also the same support and service. Some challenges that might show up in the center look like being hypercritical or judgmental, feeling lonely or isolated, codependence, or jealousy. I know that for me, I've often struggled with that first one. I have always been my own worst critic. And so my journey, especially as I embark on an entirely new career and life path, is about having more compassion and grace for myself. It's acknowledging being in the early part of a learning curve and choosing to love where I'm at, including all of the mistakes and failures. Some coaching questions for you and your team are: how or what makes you feel most appreciated? What is your work in service of? And by the way, if it's in service of something or someone that has nothing to do with the work itself, that's just as noble and loving. And then where or how might you need to ask for more support in order to thrive? Now, as we move up into the throat chakra, we address the core human needs to speak and be heard, which find their expression in open communication and resonance. Expression is powerful. To be able to speak your truth, to have an honest and open line of communication, first and foremost within yourself, and how you then express yourself to the world. At the personal level, I invite you to consider your vocation, which may or may not be the same as your job. What contribution are you offering, and how is that being expressed in the world? For me, that looks like coaching and empowering my clients to be the conscious creators of their lives. Looks like offering knowledge and value like I get to do today in this masterclass. So what is that for you? And if there is something that you aren't expressing, what's just one small step you could take today to move a little bit closer to it? Turning to the concept of leadership, we can look at the themes of feedback, conflict management, and expression of team members' authentic voice. Some challenges here could appear as fear of speaking up, or too much talking, gossiping, dominating, or interrupting others when they speak. Where do you notice this in yourself or in the circles that you operate in? What adjustments can you make to be more impeccable with your word? Some coaching questions for you to take away for this chakra include, how do you respond to feedback? How do you manage conflicts as they arise? And where is your voice muted or not being expressed as openly or authentically as you'd like? Now, as we move up into the third eye, we start getting into lighter, higher, and faster vibrational energy. This is the seat of intuition. It's the command center right between your eyebrows, which offers something beyond wisdom. As we've moved up the chakras, ascended from physical safety, bridged the gap between that human self and the divine self, we can more easily trust the answers that we already have inside. Intuition is our greatest magical power if we make the space and have the support to listen to its subtle vibration. Through light, we have the miracle of seeing, which is the basic function of this chakra. While we all experience the literal seeing of our realities around us, just like we spoke about earlier when we looked at that Einstein quote, at the level of energy, that reality is truly an illusion. But there are many different ways of seeing, like that intuition and insight, which sparks in turn new ideas and innovation. So at the personal level, I invite you to think about your mental values, or in other words, what wakes up your genius and contributes to your original thinking. For me, that looks like reading, listening to podcasts, retreats, seminars, and writing. When I write, I feel like I tap into that elusive flow state. And when I'm in the groove, I can connect different ideas and create new meanings from them. For leaders, this is where we need our energy center open to set that clear vision, that strategic direction for the company or for the team, and have the foresight to navigate inevitable obstacles like competition and challenging market conditions. As a leader yourself, you may contemplate questions like, how can you become aware of your blind spots? Which, by the way, is something we work extensively on in coaching. What brings you the greatest clarity or focus? And which are the thoughts that most consume you? And are they actually serving you? In the vein of raising vibration through meditation and writing, aside with working with a coach, just journaling in a quiet, connected space like nature can be an extremely useful exercise for contemplating these questions, which I acknowledge can often be really difficult to answer. And last but not least, we arrive at the crown chakra, above or on top of your head. In this magical space, the core needs of connection to a higher power, whether you call it God, source, universe, or simply purpose, and this greater knowing are all expressed. Whereas the root chakra connects you to the earth, the crown chakra connects you to the universe. And when that energy is flowing freely, keep having trouble with that double alliteration, flowing freely through the crown, our creative consciousness or our ability to manifest turns on. We can set intentions for the goals we desire to achieve while also releasing attachment to how or when they occur. Personally, consider here your attunement to that greater force. Whether you identify with the notion of spirit or spirituality, or whether you nobly connect to an inspired mission for your life. As leaders, this is where we talk about purpose and overall values. What are those of the organization that you lead or that you're a part of? And how does that connect to your own personal values? And whether or not your career or work is directly connected to your own greatest aspirations and inspirations, have you taken the time and the space to really identify what those are? And can those be expressed freely to the people that you surround yourself with? As I work with my clients, often when there's a discord or strong feelings of dis-ease in their work, when we explore the space of values, they start to see how their personal values clash with those expressed in their organizations. And from there, we work on determining how to either navigate that misalignment with more freedom or make the changes that support their well-being and greater connection. And speaking of my work and coaching sessions, as we round out our overview of this incredible system of energy, and you have a better understanding of what's possible for you when the system is operating at its best, I'd like to share more about how a coaching process can help achieve this state. Imagine awakening your greatest aspirations and inspirations. My 7-step process blends the various practical and mindful principles and tools like you've just seen, and we work to empower you to up-level. I believe you're already the geniuses of your own lives, and still we all need a support system. Together, we find and remove those mental and physical obstacles and build the capacity to unleash your full potential. In our bespoke one-on-one coaching sessions, I serve as your strategic partner as we answer these questions. What do you really want? Who do you have to be to make that vision a reality? What do you need to believe in order to achieve it? And what beliefs are you holding consciously or unconsciously today that could be restricting that forward movement or achievement? And then we get to action. I support you in what you need to do to achieve exactly what you want. So why does any of this matter anyway? Well, imagine if you could achieve new outcomes rooted in deep transformation. How would that feel? Like energetic alignment, where your thoughts, intentions, and actions are congruent with your intuition and authentic desires. Like harmony created by having clear boundaries and focus that creates space for presence and purposeful action. And ultimately, that feeling of fulfillment. Aren't we all seeking that? That connection to an intentional path that serves a greater inspired mission, as I just said. So if this sounds interesting to you, I'd like to invite you to consider the power of coaching. I have 4 spots open for my 6-month coaching process. And each month, we focus on your centers of energy, facilitating a comprehensive leadership development journey. This framework provides a structured container for defining and addressing your big agenda. After working together, you will be in awe of your shift and how you close that gap between your status quo, where you are today, and your deepest desires around where you want to be in the future. You could be thinking, coaching might work for other people, but it's not for me. Well, I share this testimonial, and I have plenty more on my website, but the most important testimonial is my own, my story. I'm a walking testimonial of the power of coaching to shift reality. I've made some of the biggest transformations in my life over the last few years, some of which I've shared with you today. And I couldn't have done it without my coach and, of course, my support system. I've included my information here. And once you contact me, I'll send you a link to book a time for a discovery call. There, we get really specific about what you want. We bring this into the realm of personal for you. And as a special offer, the first 3 to message me after this session today will get a free 30-minute coaching with me and my ultimate resource guide that I curated with recommended products, services, and tools connected to each of these chakras that will help you support your most vital life. Believe me, you want to get your hands on this resource list. It's pretty darn cool. So now I've been doing all the speaking. I'd love to hear some feedback in the chat, or feel free to just take yourself off mute. We're a pretty intimate group here. What's one thing that you're taking away from today?
I can start if that's okay with everybody. So I'm a professional. I'm here as I'm a vice president of human capital within private equity. Fast-paced, demanding environment with a lot of strategic and relevant decisions. And what I took away, Natalie, is it's always good to sort of step back and reanalyze your life, reanalyze where you are in your life and your career, and sort of introspect how, as you move forward, what is important to you, what is not important to you. And I did like a series of the questions that you had on the slides.
Beautiful. Thank you, Nicole, for sharing that. Anyone else? Jess says in the chat, I witnessed how you apply these wonderful strategies in your leadership style. Oh, thank you, Jess. Jess worked with me in my last job. I grew a lot because of you. Thank you. I grew a lot because of you too.
I can share what's coming up for me, and thank you for this beautiful presentation and this perspective. And what's coming up for me is really how critical it is, I think, in all the aspects of well-being, right? To really look at the whole person, and to do so is quite a process, right? To do so is quite a process. There's a lot there that I think is that many of us often don't pay attention to. And so there's a little bit of reflection that I'm having as I'm listening to you, is where I might not have been paying attention enough lately. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Shakti. I love that reflection. Life is busy, and we need reminders to really be present, and it's a daily practice.
I can go next. And I'm with Shakti there on the importance of us really looking within to have a greater sense of self, to be our best self, or to put our authentic self at work or any other areas of our lives. And I love the questions that you asked for us to reflect on in each of the chakras, because it starts with us, right? Having the assessment of where are we and what is important for us. And then making the correlation on what's going on with us at work or in life. And that's really the power of coaching, through those questions, right? So beautifully done, Natalie. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea.
I'll go next. Natalie, this is great. And I relate to your story too. Obviously, we both, and I think Andrea too, recently left the corporate world. And I always said, I wish we can actually lead from the inside. And now that you put this work forward, it just clicked that we need to really bring this to organizations because we don't really talk about chakras and it's so needed to kind of ground our leaders and ourselves too. I love how you talk about the different chakras, and I remember a few weeks ago I got my chakras aligned, and for me that was pretty much everything that I knew about chakras was that alignment in that session. But how you're taking that to leadership in an organization, I think is very clever because I think in order to be a great leader, you have to really control your emotions, ground yourself, and what better way of doing it through this work, really understanding and having the awareness of what each of those energy centers represent. So you can be, especially because of change, right? And speak as an entrepreneur and a business owner right now, we're going through so much change and for me, I feel like I'm often misaligned and my energy is not where it needs to be. So just the awareness on how to bring these questions to a practical sense, I think is very, very helpful. Great job.
Thank you, Diana. Beautiful reflection. And I'm seeing your comments in the chat as well. Thank you all. So I do want to offer the space in our last couple minutes if anyone has any questions that I can answer. And really anything goes. We can talk about questions you may have about the content or questions related to coaching.
I have a question, Natalie. When you know for sure in one of those chakras you have a blockage, right? Whether it's a mental blockage or something that is stands in the way, how do we tackle that? From a leadership perspective, right? Whether it's fear, whether it's, I don't know, any of those negative feelings, I guess.
Yeah, it really depends on what the blockage is. Obviously, as we've talked about today, it's one interconnected system. So one area that may be blocked or disordered is impacting the entire operating system. So we really have to hone in on what that is and where that is. And I actually have a set of tools and exercises that can be applied that are specific to each of those chakras and can actually be applied not just personally, but in a business context, right? And working with teams. So it is very specific to the issue, so to speak, but the first and most critical component of this is the awareness. And the last thing I'll say about that, Deanna, and to the group here is it's the awareness and the embodiment, right? Because in our Western world and in our hustle and bustle day-to-day life, especially in business, we are so in our heads. We are so analytical. We are thinking, meaning making machines. And in working with my coaching clients and the work I'm doing myself has been really getting into the body and identifying the shape, the texture, the feeling of that blockage, where it is. Because until we can embody something, we can't think our way out of it. So it's really allowing ourselves to feel it. And again, I have different exercises and tools, and I'm happy to speak offline about those in more detail when I am working with leaders and with teams that are unique to each of those chakras. Beautiful question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No, we're nearing the end of our time. Sija, hi.
I'm curious, Natalie, if you talk about embodiment, do you personally do any work with your clients or someone you're working with, someone working with you on coaching and movement or physical? Like I've just been reading more about people doing coaching out in nature and things. So I was just thinking when you're talking about embodiment, about sort of physicality and coaching, and curious how that comes into your practice as a coach or as part of your personal development.
Yeah, thank you. Great question. And I do work with my clients on taking them into their body through guided kind of meditations or, eyes closed and different types of movements that I do with them together. I have not actually yet taken that into an outdoor space, but I have read about the same. And for local clients, I would love to experiment with that. There's so much research around changing our geography and how impactful that can be in moving energy and creating new perspectives. So, silly example, I've also had clients get up and, they start the session in a funk and like we do jumping jacks, right? Or we shift the energy, we move it, we stand up, we change our position in the room, and moving to an outdoor space and getting physical is an excellent idea and recommendation and something I would love to explore more. So for my local clients, watch out. All right, well, before you go, if you walk away with only 3 things today, I want you to remember the following: that you're pure energy and you always have the power to source it from within. And the chakras are nothing more than an expression of the innate wisdom of your body. And if you remove obstacles and create more alignment, you can tap into that ever-present energy source. And lastly, your strategies for enhancing your energetic well-being as an individual are not so different from those for enhancing your leadership. Organizations and teams are just a compilation of integrated humans. So go out and continue being awesome humans on this Friday. Thank you so much again for joining today and spending your valuable time with me. I really appreciate it. I'll be doing these master classes every 4 to 6 weeks. So if you enjoyed this one, please tune in for the next and encourage any friends or coworkers to join as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you.
Yeah, great session.